Millennials. Millennials, also called Generation Y, were born between 1981 and 1996. They are now the largest generation in the workforce, making up more than 1/5 of the global population. In the United States, they are also the most diverse generation in history. Millennials were shaped by education and technology arriving at the same moment. They grew up alongside the internet, learning to search, connect, and adapt as digital tools evolved. They also became the most educated generation to date, with about 1/3 earning a 4-year college degree. This education prepared them for a fast-changing economy, but global events disrupted their early lives almost immediately. Financial stability came later, and through unfamiliar paths. Many entered adulthood during the 2008 Great Recession, delaying homeownership and wealth building. In response, they adopted tools their parents never had. App-based investing, digital finance, and impact investing became common ways to manage money in real time. Even small, early investments gained power through time. In the decades ahead, millennials are also positioned to receive the largest wealth transfer in history, as homes and savings pass down from baby boomers. Work stopped being just about survival. Therapy, mental health care, and mindfulness became normal topics rather than private struggles. Purpose moved to the center. Many began choosing jobs based on values, flexibility, and meaning, pushing companies to rethink culture and expectations. Constant connectivity also made remote collaboration and global careers possible. Health became something to manage early. Exercise, sleep, nutrition, and preventive care became part of daily life, supported by wearables and telemedicine. But this progress carried weight. Many graduated with 5-figure student loan debt into a frozen job market. Their careers stalled before they even began. For millennials who were able to buy homes, on average, this happened at later ages compared to previous generations. Stability in homeownership, savings, and security arrived years later than promised. Over time, trust in employers, banks, and institutions quietly eroded. Through it all, millennials weathered everything with their impressive ability to adapt, learning to build identity and opportunity while the ground keeps shifting beneath them. Generation Z. Gen Z includes those born roughly between 1997 and 2009. They make up nearly a quarter of the global population and are now entering adulthood at scale, filling classrooms and job markets faster than institutions can adjust. Gen Z grew up with a level of awareness no generation before them had. Fully immersed in digital life from childhood, they have never known a world without instant news, social media, or global conversation. This made them highly informed early and deeply realistic about what adulthood looks like. They watched older generations juggle debt, rising rents, unstable jobs, and burnout, and adjusted their expectations accordingly. Emotional honesty became normal, not brave. Mental health, money stress, and identity are discussed openly. Nearly 2/3 say peace of mind matters more than wealth, even if that means slower careers or simpler lifestyles. 80-hour weeks and constant hustle are viewed with suspicion. Boundaries, flexibility, and personal time are treated as essentials. That realism shows up early in how they handle money. More than half use health savings accounts. 1 in 5 contributes to a 401k before age 25. Movements like loud budgeting and no-buy reject status spending in favor of control and transparency. Money is discussed publicly as a shared problem to solve. Learning is fast and self-directed. Over 40% use platforms like TikTok to teach themselves skills, from coding to financial literacy. Information is pulled on demand and applied immediately, allowing rapid adaptation in a changing job market. Wellness is built into daily routines. Wearables, health apps, and telemedicine are normal tools. Even under high economic stress, Gen Z is more willing than previous generations to seek guidance and preventive care. But this clarity often comes with extra burden. Many wake up to alerts about climate disasters and global conflict, then scroll through curated lives that invite constant comparison. Research consistently shows that Gen Z reports significantly worse mental health compared to older generations. Optimism still exists out there, but it is cautious. Gen Z's inspiring strength comes from their clarity, seeing reality as it is and choosing intention over illusion. Generation X. Generation X includes those born between 1965 and 1980. Globally, they represent about 17% of the population. In the United States, they now hold many of the most demanding leadership roles, often without much attention. Independence was learned early for Generation X. They grew up during record-high divorce rates and the rapid shift toward 2-income households. Many came home to empty houses after school, letting themselves in and figuring things out alone. With less supervision and fewer safety nets, problem-solving became a daily habit. Over time, this produced a generation that trusts itself first and questions authority by default. This independence shaped how Gen X works. They are practical, skeptical, and results-focused. Despite being smaller in number, about 55% of startup founders come from Generation X. They value competence over titles and prefer environments where decisions move quickly. These traits made them especially effective leaders during the early tech era, when adaptability mattered more than hierarchy. Financially, Gen X is at a turning point. Most are now in their highest earning years, and roughly 3/4 earn more than their parents did at the same age, even after adjusting for inflation. At the same time, they carry high levels of debt, mortgages, car loans, and education costs, often while still paying for their children's futures and their own. Generation X was the first to fully rely on the 401k, learning early that retirement security would depend on personal planning rather than employer promises. Gen X quietly redefined what strength looked like. They moved away from silent endurance without abandoning responsibility. Therapy, mental health tools, and work-life boundaries became acceptable and often necessary. Flexibility and autonomy matter, and identity is less tightly tied to job titles than it was for previous generations. Health became about long-term maintenance rather than quick fixes. Influenced by early exposure to yoga, alternative medicine, and stress awareness, they take a balanced view of wellness. Even while caring for children at home and aging parents at the same time, over 70% still report good mental and physical health. The pressure on Gen X shows up daily. Pensions disappeared. Job security weakened. If something breaks, career, health, finances, there is rarely an institution waiting to step in. Their strength lies in endurance without nostalgia, adjusting quietly while holding systems together. Baby boomers. Baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964, during the largest population surge of the 20th century. In the United States, they number about 75 million people, roughly a quarter of the population. Globally, they represent more than 1 billion individuals, largely concentrated in wealthier nations. Boomers grew up during one of the strongest economic expansions in modern history, when growth felt normal rather than exceptional. Suburbs expanded, wages rose, and owning a home moved within reach of ordinary families. As adults, they entered a labor market that rewarded long careers, seniority, and stability. Over time, this translated into extraordinary financial power. Today, boomers control roughly 70% of total U.S. wealth and more than half of all household assets, more than any generation before or since. Rising home values and access to affordable college, before tuition costs exploded, allowed wealth to grow without heavy debt. Culturally, boomers came of age during civil rights victories, social movements, and rapid technological change. This fostered a strong sense of personal agency and confidence. Career paths opened up, and individual choice mattered more than simply fitting in. Many believed progress was not only possible, but inevitable. A longer life also became possible. Medical advances extended lifespan, and compared to earlier generations at the same age, many boomers report better heart health and lower blood pressure. This longevity created an entire economy built around staying active, independent, and productive later in life, reshaping how aging itself is understood. Abundance came with new pressure. As pensions faded, retirement planning shifted onto the individual, often for the first time. Longer lives mean savings must stretch further, while many now help adult children with housing and support aging parents at the same time. Financial security became something to actively manage rather than assume. Their story is one of expansion, of population, opportunity, and lifespan, and of carrying the weight that comes with it. Generation Alpha. Generation Alpha includes children born between 2010 and 2024, the largest generation ever recorded. With roughly 2 billion people worldwide, they are the first generation born entirely in the 21st century. They're also the first generation raised entirely on iPads and Bluey. Generation Alpha is growing up with material support and technology arriving together. By the end of this decade, their economic influence is projected to exceed $5 trillion, before most of them even reach adulthood. Many are being raised by older, more financially established millennial parents, often with more savings, education, and long-term planning than previous generations had at the same stage of life. This translates into earlier access to healthcare, structured learning, and enrichment. Their minds are shaped by constant interaction with digital systems. Screens are not an add-on to life. They are the environment. From early childhood, learning is visual, interactive, and game-based, making education portable and adaptive from an early age. Researchers expect Generation Alpha to stay in school longer than any generation before them. Nearly half are projected to earn a university degree. Constant exposure to global content also accelerates social awareness, creating children who appear more informed and confident at younger ages. Financial support often comes from multiple directions. Resources flow not only from parents, but also from boomer grandparents, creating a rare concentration of intergenerational support. Brands already design products, platforms, and media around their preferences, treating them as active participants in the global economy long before adulthood. But constant saturation brings new risks. Hours spent on tablets and phones can crowd out unstructured play, physical movement, and face-to-face interaction. Attention spans, patience, and social development may require more intentional support than in previous generations. Managing abundance will require deliberate limits, not just access. Their defining challenge may be growing up surrounded by systems so advanced that learning when and how to use them wisely matters most. Generation Beta. Generation Beta refers to children born roughly between 2025 and 2039, a generation only just beginning to arrive. Early forecasts suggest they could make up around 16% of the global population within a decade, with many likely to live well into the next century. Because Generation Beta has only just begun to arrive, everything we say about them is based on projection rather than lived history. Still, current trends offer a glimpse of the world they may grow up in. Gen Beta is likely to grow up fully immersed from the start. Artificial intelligence may feel less like a tool and more like infrastructure, quietly shaping how they learn, communicate, travel, and receive care. Education may become highly personalized, adapting to individual pace and interests rather than fixed schedules. Learning could feel less like a classroom and more like a continuous, responsive process. Geography may matter less than it ever has before. Digital spaces are expected to make collaboration across countries routine, while culture becomes shaped more by shared interests than physical location. Sustainability may be treated as a baseline expectation, built into systems rather than left to individual choice. Health monitoring may become part of daily life from an early age. Wearable devices and predictive care could shift medicine toward prevention rather than reaction. At the same time, parents wary of digital saturation may intentionally prioritize outdoor play, movement, and face-to-face connection to preserve balance. This future carries new kinds of uncertainty. Constant personalization may narrow curiosity, while automation could reduce patience for difficulty, delay, and friction. In a world where answers arrive instantly, the ability to sit with uncertainty may become rare. Human skills, empathy, creativity, judgment, may become the clearest forms of distinction. As systems grow more intelligent, these traits may matter more, not less. For Generation Beta, the defining challenge may not be access to intelligence, but learning how to stay human alongside it. Before all of this, before algorithms, before abundance, before choice became endless, there were generations shaped by scarcity. The GI generation learned to endure collapse, war, and uncertainty. Stability was not assumed. It was built slowly, through work, restraint, and shared sacrifice. Right after them, the silent generation stepped into a rare moment of order. Jobs were plentiful, institutions were trusted, and progress felt steady, if quiet. Together, they built the systems that later generations would inherit: pensions, long careers, public trust, and the idea that effort could lead to security. The world has changed since then. Speed replaced patience. Flexibility replaced permanence. Certainty became rare. But the foundation remains. Every generation that followed did not start from nothing. They started from what was built first. If you like this video and want to learn more about unique hidden advantages, check out this other video.